Insane in the membrane.
Hello everybody, welcome to the show. It's me, Rich Wilson, and today I'm joined by the brilliant poet Dan Whitlam. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
It's nice to have you here, man. Nice to have you. You good? You well?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm keeping well. Yeah, it's almost springtime, so I'm getting pretty happy right now. It's gorgeous.
I love springtime. I think it's my favourite time of the year. I've said it before. I'll say it again. It just feels so full of opportunity.
It does, doesn't it? It just changes your whole outlook and everything. I think
Yeah.
you kind of, you step outside and all of a sudden you're just feeling better about yourself.
I love it. Oh man, it's so good. I like. Don't get me wrong. I do like walking around in the rain. If I'm wrapped up and I'm not too wet, but springtime, man, I just love it. Everything smells different. It's just everything's opening up. It's a beautiful thing.
It is, isn't it? And I think there's such a thing around people in like seasons. In winter you just kind of want to hide away and wrap yourself up and just put your head down.
Yeah.
And just more and more people out and about during spring, going into summertime, and yeah, it's lovely, man. It's getting me properly excited. Honestly, I stepped up this morning with a big old smile on my face. I was like, right, what we doing? What's happening?
I love it. I think you're right. Because we are basically, fundamentally we're animals, and so we need to hibernate. We get that urge to sort of stay under the covers and just eat shit food for a few months in the dark. And I think we should give ourselves a bit more of a break.
I agree, man. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also just fine to do that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think there's such a thing around people wanting to be busy all the time. Like I don't think the UK is as bad as America. I mean, Christ, it's almost like you have like 1 day off a year or 2 days off in America, and it's kind of like this battle of who can sort of work the hardest. But I think it is though, isn't it? It's kind of needed in the UK just to be able to have a little break and whatnot.
Yeah. It is funny when I see all the videos. I mentioned this on another episode. I see these videos now and you see there's normally an American dude and he's going, I am up at 3 a.m. I drink 15 gallons of water. I've done this, that and the other by midday. And then I start again at 1 p.m. and I'm right through till midnight. You're like, all right, mate, just have a sit down. Just, have a biscuit.
Chill out, have a cup of tea. Just
have a
relax
cup of
little
tea.
bit, Put your feet up, mate. Honestly, it's not a competition the whole time. But it feels like that. It's definitely a sort of battle to see who can get one step ahead. This sort of like no days off attitude, I think.
That's
There's a lot of that in America.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Is that kind of you're wasting time if you don't know. Sometimes it's just nice to just sit around in your dressing gown. I mean, if you're doing it every day, then you need to go and probably talk to someone. But
see someone, talk to your mates. See what's going on.
Yeah, but put some shoes on. Just do something. But I think every now and again, just have a day where you do nothing. You're allowed.
Oh, completely. Yeah, I think it should be celebrated.
Yeah.
Even if you just sort of like got up. I read something recently, and they were saying that even if you just got sort of if things are quite bad, getting out of bed, even that should be a little celebration, because it's the little steps which add up to the big steps. So it's kind of celebrating those little mini victories, which is often a good thing to do.
Absolutely, tiny victories, man, and it's that. Yeah, because I do know people that there's a couple of comics that I know, and they're always like, don't call me in the morning. I'm not around in the morning, and I'll be around in the afternoon. And just things like that. You kind of go, if you get up before midday, that's a little victory. If you get up, if you can get up earlier and just go for a walk, and you don't have to be running marathons.
Oh, completely.
Just do something different that you didn't do yesterday.
No, I'm a massive advocate for that, and I completely agree with you on that. It is the mini victories, isn't it?
Yeah, and just noticing things. I'm just noticing your T-shirt actually. That album, Supertramp, Crime of the Century, was around when I was a kid. My dad always had it on. Yeah. And now I've now owned it. My dad gave me all these records a little while ago. Right. And so I'm so surprised to see that on your T-shirt. That's honestly amazing.
Yeah, it's my dad's a musician now, but
right.
He when I was growing up, he was always playing sort of REM or Genesis, Pink Floyd, Supertramp, going into Coldplay, etc. So I grew up with all this music, and then this was his T-shirt.
Oh wow!
And you know how a lot of parents have like a band drawer, like a T-shirt full of like old band T-shirts and memorabilia and stuff. And my dad has his drawer filled with T-shirts, and I kind of looked through it and I saw this. I was like, right, I'm having this. Thanks, Dad. But it's a good album, isn't it?
It's
brilliant.
A great album. It's a fantastic. Even now, Dreamer, when that comes on, I'm instantly transported back to when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Just that opening keyboard. Oh my God!
Did you ever see them? Live or anything?
I never saw them live, unfortunately. Did you?
No,
No.
didn't know.
Oh man. That
Who's
would have
the
been.
who do you reckon is the best sort of like group that you've seen live in terms of music
Oh wow.
or artist?
Oh my God. I actually went to see.
It's a
I
big
saw.
question.
I've seen so many artists. I've been really lucky to go to a lot of gigs. I went to see a couple of lads from Gomez the other night.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they were playing in Brighton. I don't know their individual names, but they were. It was just the two of them. Oh, and the bass player came out and joined them for a few. Oh my God, they're so talented, so talented. Just the two of them making this absolute racket. It was brilliant. And it's just things like that. You go, fuck, this is it. This is what I get such a buzz from seeing music, seeing bands.
Yeah,
I fucking love it, man. What about you?
I think I think maybe because my dad, I just have such a like affinity towards, one person on the stage, piano, maybe a background orchestra or something like that. But I went to see Billy Joel with my dad, and just like,
wow.
I don't know, growing up with like Piano Man and these other classics, seeing that was pretty special. Yeah, that was pretty special. Do you know who I'm going to see in a couple of weeks? I'm going to see Elton John. How
No
mad is that?
way.
Yeah, so I think we were supposed to see him during COVID. I was supposed to go with my dad and see Elton John and then the Eagles the following week.
Wow.
Two absolute
Yeah.
Hall of Famers. But Elton John's been cancelled for about sort of whatever it's been now, like nearly 3 years. So it's finally happening. So I'm really excited to see that. So I'm seeing that in a couple of weeks.
See,
Which again,
yeah. Well, again, sorry, I talked over you. What were you going to say?
no, it just like suits me to a T. The kind of piano singing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm proper excited for that. I think it'll be good.
See, I love that. I've been really lucky to be. My parents aren't musicians, but I was always surrounded by records and music, and so I don't remember a time when there wasn't any music. There was always. So we had Supertramp, and then it was Elton John, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. I seem to remember that being on a lot. I remember every time you put the radio on, Good Vibrations by the Beatles was always on.
Yeah,
By
big
Beach
time.
Boys, sorry. And yeah, just I was always surrounded by Bob Dylan and the Stones and all this great music. I've been really lucky. And I think it's important to surround your kids with decent music, you know?
Yeah, massively. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you got children yourself?
I do, yeah. And it's
Right.
funny how they say stuff. They'll go, I'll put a song on in the car, and they'll just go, oh man, I remember this when I was a kid, because my lads are older now.
Right,
And they go,
sure.
oh my God, I remember this song, Dad. I used to love this. And you go, well, I didn't even know you were taking any notice. And they're like, oh yeah, I love this.
Yeah,
It's
funny.
important.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's that's a form of inheritance, I guess. The things that you just play around in the home that you think someone's not taking any notice to, they really kind of like soak it up.
Yeah,
I definitely
absolutely.
found that I just grew up with my dad, but it was everything that he's sort of done and imparted. Whether it's like, I think even like, just talking around the dinner table, you get informed about, however much your parents maybe ask you sort of questions or etc. You take that confidence that you gain around the dinner table into school or later life or whatever it is. And I think there's just so much that happens at home that affects us
Definitely,
further down the line. Which it's just interesting to think about that, isn't it?
Yeah.
The,
You don't realise what kids are absorbing.
yeah, and how you're formed and how that
Yeah.
creates you in later life.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, and I feel, do you know what, it's not, when I was listening to your stuff,
Uh-huh.
and it's, what I love is, like, I was listening to Quick Intimacy,
Yeah.
and then I can't remember, there was another couple that I was listening to. The songwriters that I really admire are the people that can tell a story in 3 minutes, like a whole story.
Uh-huh.
And those are people I love. And I was listening to your stuff, and I was like, you're tackling some pretty heavy topics, but in such a beautiful way. Like you're getting the point across in such a wonderful way. I was walking up the road, and I stopped in my tracks, going, "This is amazing."
Oh, mate, I really appreciate that. Thank you, honestly.
That's such a skill. It's such an incredible skill to have, to get all those points across in such a short space of time. And is that? I mean, it obviously takes time to get to that point, but
Yeah.
where did it start for you?
It's funny you talk about like time and getting things go quite quickly, because I had I'm an actor as well, and I went to Guildhall, which is a school in Moorgate, and I was there for 3 years. But we had a poetry teacher, and I wasn't really into sort of poetry or rapping or writing at the time, but she said, "Can you create a 6-word poem?" And
Right.
you can hold like words within words. So I did a poem about forget-me-nots, you know, the flower.
Yeah.
But then within the word forget-me-not, you've got for, forget, get, me, and also not. So I kind of like created a 6-word poem out of that, which
Wow.
it turned out to be quite lengthy, just using 6 words. And I think what did I do? Yeah, so I think I did it about a girl who I'd just broken up with, and I wrote cease be us, thus cease be me, cease be being without she with he, thus out be me, cease be us, thus cease be me. And I wrote that, and I was like, oh, I absolutely love just like playing with words and messing
Yeah.
around with rhyme and, you know, playing words forwards and then backwards. And from there, I then wrote another thing at drama school where I basically I got stabbed when I was 16 in
Oh,
London, which yeah, it's pretty
Oh
intense.
my God.
But yeah, I was coming out of an audition in Caledonian Road, and my friend he was getting mugged, and I basically went over to go and help him out. And during that process, I got stabbed twice in the back with a screwdriver,
Shit,
and it
man.
kind of that really influenced my kind of my writing for sure. But I remember being in hospital, and it's kind of crazy to think about now. But I remember my dad came over to me, and for some reason I started saying I started talking about like university choices, and you know, I didn't go to university. I went to drama school, so it's a slightly different route. But I just remember saying to him, I was like, "Oh, Dad, I don't have a subject. I don't know what to do." And I think to then write about the subject that led to me talking to, you know, that about my dad, and then to write about the stabbing at drama school, the stabbing in Caledonian Road, but then writing about it at drama school. And then, you know, that was the kind of start of it, because I wrote that poem, and then that got commissioned by BBC Radio 4, and that was then out on a program on BBC Radio 4, and that led to me doing more like live shows with So Far Sound, so like a gigging platform in London, and then just writing more and more and more, and then sort of realizing that, you know, like content is king these days, so just kind of pushing all of that out.
Yeah.
But it just really goes to show you that, you know, I think everyone thinks that, I don't know, a path of whatever you're doing is sort of linear, but it's very much, you know,
Oh yeah.
crazy. The lines are wild, and it can be ups and downs, and you
Yeah.
know, completely plateauing, and then things can take off.
Mate, yeah.
But yeah, it all started at drama school really, and then I just started putting out more and more and more, and yeah, putting it out
Amazing.
for no one looking at it, and then now some more people are looking at it, and yeah. So
It's
went like
funny.
that, really.
It is funny, isn't it? When because you do it because you want to do it, and then you hope that someone will see it, and it's that, and like you say, you plateau, then it spikes again, and you're off, and it goes like that all the time. It's so difficult to keep going, isn't it? To keep pushing when it feels like no one's taking any notice.
Yeah.
It's so hard to find the motivation to keep pushing on.
Oh, but completely. Like honestly, that's like you must get this as a, you know, as a writer as well as a comic. It's kind of like, would you still do it if there was? And it's so hard for you as well, because it's like, would you still do it if there was no one in the room?
Yeah.
'Cause, you know, you feed off that. It's not necessarily like appraisal, but it's almost a reaction to what you're doing is good. And I guess with your job especially, it's so difficult, because you can tell if you're doing a good job like then and there in the moment, right?
Yeah.
Because they're either laughing or they're not. So you've got to be. Is that quite difficult to gauge that?
It is hard, especially when it's going badly. You kind of like, oh God, and you go, right, I'll just give him this. I know this works. This massive bit of material. I know this is a killer, and you
Yeah.
drop it, and nothing happens. And you're like, oh fuck, I've got nothing left.
Oh man.
It's a long day at the office. It's a long day at the
Yeah,
office. But it's like with your
absolutely.
stuff, like you putting your stuff out there, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and you can have days where you go, what is the fucking point, man?
Yeah.
And you just have to find it within yourself to just go, no, I love doing it. I know there's going to be, and so when you start getting the feedback from people, they go, "Oh man, this is amazing."
Absolutely.
What a day that is when that starts to happen.
It honestly is, and it can go. I think someone told me ages ago, they were like, you know, even if it's just one person that you affect in some kind of way, then that can be a massive win. And I think I remember it was because I started a lot of this on, you know, social media, like a lot of people, so like Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that. But I think one person commented just like, "Oh, this is really cool. Like, I'm really enjoying this. Please do more." And I was kind of like, "Oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna carry on doing it and put more stuff out." And it's definitely a bonus when people like what you're doing. But I've now kind of find it when I'm at home, just writing in my studio. It's like that's just my happy place now. I really enjoy doing that. So I think it's trying to find more of like the happiness in the pursuit rather than the pursuit of happiness.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. What a brilliant way to put it as well. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to find more of that, and I think I am finding more of it just by being more like consciously present about what I'm doing. Because I used to do it a lot of the time where I was just sort of like end gaming, and I was like, right, how many views is this going to do?
Oh yeah.
And especially now that but that's the thing. TikTok's crazy for sort of any sort of artist, I think, because it can be a free marketing tool, because then people can. I've had it where I've got a lot of my clients that I write for now. It's based off from them seeing one of my videos online. So I guess now I'm kind of like, oh, if this video does well, then it can lead to more work, etc. So it's quite a it can become a dangerous sort of place to live at times. So I think you just need to step back and remember why you're doing it a bit.
I think that is absolutely bang on. You do get swept up in that kind of, well, but the numbers, there's, and you're always like, well, if I get to that, then I'll get that, and you kind of lose. Yeah, you lose why you started in the first place. You're absolutely right. But you've been through so much. Like you've just mentioned, you just casually dropped that you got stabbed.
Yeah, sorry, I dropped a lot just there, didn't I? Yeah.
And then I'm like, right, well, we need to. I mean, how did that feel? Because I've never had that happen to me.
Yeah.
What went through your head? Did you realise what had happened?
At the time, I just remember I was running. For anyone who's been in it can be anything. A fight or some kind of sports match or anything, you're getting hit a bit. I was running down the road, and then I was getting chased at the time, and I didn't know I'd just been stabbed with a screwdriver in the back. But I got to the bottom of the road, and they kind of left me alone. And I turned to my best friend George, and I said to him, I was like, oh, when you get a dead leg and it just everything goes kind of numb. I said to him, I was like, oh mate, I feel like it's like I got my whole back's kind of dead. And he was like, oh, lift up your shirt, and I lifted up my shirt, and it was just blood all down my back.
Oh my God.
And then I think adrenaline either sort of weared off then, or it built up again. I started panicking a bit, and then there's like reflective mirrors they have on Nisa Locals or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I had a look there. I then realised the reality of everything. Called my own ambulance, and they were amazing. They were there so quickly, and I was then in the hospital, and then they did like a chest drain where they put something in to like drain your lung of any fluid and stuff.
Oh my God. But
it's I think it's within the nature of your podcast, which is brilliant and so necessary to men of all ages essentially, and women as well. But it's kind of like, I think that was when I first had an experience of firstly like a panic attack, but then also trauma-born anxiety.
Right.
Because then for the next probably 3 years, the only reason I called an ambulance was because my lung collapsed. Was because I'd been stabbed. It wasn't because my lung collapsed. So for the next 3 years, I kept thinking my lung was spontaneously collapsing.
Oh wow.
And it got, and I'd give myself these panic attacks, and it gets to such a bad stage where I bought. You can buy this kind of like monitor which can tell you how much oxygen is in your lungs, how much they're holding.
Right. Okay.
And I bought one of these online because I just wanted to be able to, if I was worrying, I could buy it and just like put my finger down and check everything. Yeah. But it's that followed me around for ages, and it was just I think understandably so, but it's a really nasty time and a nasty thing to go through.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
The craziest thing was my attitude towards the person who stabbed me, who was another young man, another guy who I've forever said was wrong place in the wrong time, which is the same as me. And through he basically got 18 months in juvenile detention and then got 2 years of tagging, and that was on a joint enterprise of GBH, which as an adult carries the same sentence as attempted murder. Oh, wow. But for a guy under 18, clean record after that. But part of the juvenile detention center rehabilitation program was that you can reach out to someone that you've done wrong by, or whatever. So I went to collect my coat like 2 years later, the one that I'd been stabbed in, because I had some sort of personal belongings in it and stuff like that. And they said, "Oh, this letter's arrived for you. Would you like to look at it to see what this person said?" And I said, "Yeah, I wanted to see it because I think a bit of closure, a bit of acceptance, but more just curiosity. I was like, oh, what's this guy want to say? And there was just like so much remorse and interest into what I'm up to now, things that he's thought about, things that he's going to get on with, and I don't know if it got to him. I'd like to think it did. I wrote a letter back to him, and just sort of saying that, you know, there's acceptance on my behalf. It's I honestly do believe it was the wrong person at the wrong time, and that then I put that in my my poem. I kind of did. The first half of this stabbing poem is me and my day going to this theatre and getting stabbed, and then it resets, and in exactly the same way, it's the guy who stabbed me's journey to the theatre. And it's kind of like two halves of the same coin, just to show that, you know, it's both young men, both people who are in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so much of the, you know, I think that, well, the epidemic of knife crime is that I honestly want to believe it's wrong place at the wrong time for a lot of people. And there's no, like, I didn't want there to be any victimization or witch hunting. It just, it was what it was. Don't remember how I got onto that, but yeah.
No, but it's all linked, man. It's all linked, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the kind of the stabbing stuff. But then I reached out. The reason, because it went quite big on in terms of like news outlets and stuff like that. And I think it was a lot because I'm, you know, like a middle class white boy getting stabbed. It was I think at the time really horrifically so. It's a bit of an anomaly. Yeah. And also because there was a boy called Ben Kinsella who got stabbed 17 times in the same spot that I was in, and he sadly died. But his sister, who's an actress, she then stopped her whole career and started a new one, being an advocate for you know, an anti-knife crime charity, which is called the Kinsella Trust. And I then reached out to them and I said, you know, I'd love to help them in any way I can. And yeah, I've been working with them and also another charity called Lives Not Knives, which is based in Croydon, just trying to, you know, help in any way I can. And that's why I like to think that, you know, if a poem or like someone's art can sort of help in any which way it can, then you know, do it. Just try and get the word out there. Continue the conversation.
Well, this is it. Listening to your stuff, you were talking. There was one, and you were talking about opening up, and you know, about men not being able to open up. And it's true. We're getting there. The conversations are happening, but it's still going to take a while. Like I've said this before, but it won't be our generation that benefits. It'll be the next, but the next generation will benefit, which is why we're doing this. Which goes back to your work, like you said. You know, someone somewhere might listen to it or see the artwork, and they'll just go, "Oh my God!" And it'll change their path, you know. And it just, like you say, just one person that listens to, you know, that the poem about opening up and talking to your mates and things like that. That's one person that's not going to end their life, which is so important. It's so important what you're doing.
Honestly, I really appreciate that, and it's
brilliant, mate.
Yeah, it's just it's you know, it's what you said. I've had a lot of young men reach out to me and sort of saying, you know, often, you know, paragraphs about how, you know, very personal things have happened to them, and saying, you know, you're really. I think it was one of the best sort of things I've ever heard someone say. But he essentially said, "You're helping me understand my own emotion a bit better."
Brilliant.
And it's kind of like, oh wow. So then, you know, in a way, I'm not, you know, writing for myself. You're writing to help other people understand something. Yeah. And I'm not sure if I believe that, but I think it's that was one of the highest forms of flattery. I was like, that's incredible, man. That's absolutely amazing. But it is funny. I think we do I've gone through a breakup recently, which has battered me.
Oh man,
I don't know if it's like the older you get, you put more on people, and you kind of think, you know, this is my forever or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, it really battered me. But it's funny that during moments when we're going through, you know, intense sadness or grief, I think we do turn to art a little bit more, whether it's, you know, novels or poems or film or music or whatever it is. You know, we do sit inside our room and we kind of put on the saddest like record we have and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, it's quite nice to just sit in that and, you know, understand it a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've just become such an advocate for that, because I think in the past I've been like, no, you can't feel sadness, you can't have any of that. And I'd kind of paint it in any other color that was a little bit brighter, and just like, fill my life with sort of noise to avoid the silence.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to, first of all, sit in it, but also just be able to talk quite frankly to people about it, your mates.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. You don't realise it until you do it. You don't realise how important it is. You go, no, I don't want to burden anyone with this. I'll be all right. I'll just pull my socks up and I'll just get on with it. But then you're going to have a pint with a mate, and then it was all just start spilling out. And then the next day you wake up and you just feel lighter. You just go, fuck.
Massively.
That's exactly what I needed. I needed to and just when you're talking to someone, you're not necessarily expecting them to have all the answers or give you any advice. You just need to just get it out of your body and into the ears of someone. Just get it out. And then it's like if you've got a house that's full of shit, the best thing to do is just pull it all out. Just pull it all out and then pick out the bits that you want to keep, get rid of the rest. And then start putting it back in. Then you got your house in a bit more in order, and that's the same with talking to people. Just get the shit out of your body, and you'll feel so much better the next day.
I'm
guaranteed.
Completely with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you always been quite good at talking to your mates or people?
Not really. No.
Or was it a change that happened in you, or what was that?
I think it was later on. I think it was when I first had counselling, which is why the podcast exists. Is because I had counselling, and then I was in a green room one day and someone said to me, I think it's Milo McCabe, he does Troy Hawk, and he said to me, how are you? And I told him truthfully. And he went, oh my God. And then he started telling me some stuff. Suddenly we had this whole different conversation that wasn't the usual, how you been, how are the gigs? It was just like, yeah, I've been feeling a bit like that lately. We had a real moment. And it really did change everything, This is why the podcast exists. And even because my dad's a beautiful man. But never really spoke about how he's felt, once or twice maybe throughout his life.
Yeah.
But he's in his 70s now, and last year he suddenly opened up to me in the car and just told me about how he felt when he was growing up. And I was like, fucking hell. So there's no time limit to it. It doesn't matter how old you are. If we can get people talking, it all helps, And I imagine, was it easy to talk to your dad? Did you have, because you said you were brought up by your dad?
Yeah, brought up by my dad. Yeah. So it's my dad's. My dad's from Yorkshire. He's from Bradford, and both his parents were teachers. He told me recently his dad never hugged him. And I think, which is, it's may have been the norm for a lot of. I
think it was the norm.
A lot of parents, yeah. But I think he certainly made it a real thing in his head that he was going to do completely the opposite of that. So me and my dad we've always been really, really close, and definitely been able to talk to each other, but more so in the sense of, okay, you got a problem, let me fix it. How can I fix that?
Yeah.
Rather than just like, I just want to speak, I just want to vent. Let me get it out. And I think it's a tendency with I'm generalizing, but men to kind of put on a fix it hat and be like, how can I sort out your problem? You got an issue, how can I make it better? Rather than just being an open ear. And I think a lot of the time we just want an open ear, just someone to speak to, So. And I think that's what you spoke about counselling, but I started counselling recently, and I kind of I put it off for so long because I think there's a lot of people, if you get hurt in a sports injury, because I got a sporting background, but you go to physiotherapy, and it's an indication of you getting better. You're getting therapy on your body. You're a bit weak, but you're going to become stronger. But then as soon as you say you're going to, psychotherapy for your head, people think there's something wrong with you, like you're sick. And I think it's the separation between mind and body, and how society looks at you getting, therapy for your mind. Yeah. And it's I think it should be in schools, honestly.
I think so, yeah.
The time when puberty is horrible. I don't envy anyone who's at school now. I really parts of it didn't like. But if we can implement that and have, even if it's just school counsellors, but everyone being able to just talk for however long it is, because it's a rarity in life that you get to talk for 40 minutes in uninterrupted, or just probed into certain corners. And I think it's something we should implement more of, really.
I think so. And like you say, puberty's the one. It's you just need someone to turn around and just say to you, everything you're feeling and thinking is right. It's a fucked up time for you. All these chemicals are raging, and you don't know what to do with yourself. And I think when I was growing up, they didn't really talk to us about that. They didn't really. They just kind of glossed over it a bit. They mentioned it in passing, almost like a teacher would make a comment. Like there's always one of the teachers that was a bit more. He was you're a bit more connected to him than the others. Like he'd swear and things like that, and he'd go, "All right, stop fucking around, lads. Just sit down." And he'd make jokes about things, and he would sometimes sort of talk about it, but we never really got sat down and explained why. One minute we're fucking happy as going, we're just bouncing off the walls, and the next minute we're miserable, and we just feel we're just randy, and we're this and we're that, and it wasn't really explained. And I think you're right; it needs to be explained, doesn't it? It needs to sit down and just go, look, your body's changing, you're changing. And it will keep, and it's going to change again. You're going to keep changing. There's going to be a different version of you later on, and I don't think it's really explained enough.
I'm completely with you. Yeah, but it's like the first time you have a real down period, you can, unless you have someone to speak to about it or to take influence from, you kind of think, well, this is it then. This is me forever. I'm just never going to feel good again. So like, you need someone to be able to go to. Go, no, it's all part of it. It's ups and downs, and you're going to be able to turn around from this. And that's when hindsight's amazing, because you can look back and go, oh wow, that happened to me. Let me learn from that. And it's such an informative time, sort of the ages of whenever 11 years old to 21 or whatever it is, and just to be able to know everything's going to be all right. There's a lot of videos going around, you've probably seen them, about people, I think young people asking people in their 30s, saying, if you could tell yourself a few lessons when you're going through your 20s, what would you say? And the majority of the time, they always just say to just be a bit easier on myself, just to not be so hard. Because, like we were saying earlier, there's, especially in London, a tendency to think, all right, I need to be the hardest worker in the room. I need to achieve this, and I need to achieve that. And if you keep thinking my life's going to start when I get this new job, or I get this new girlfriend, or this new house, you're just living a provisional life, and it's it's never actually going to begin. You're just going to be chasing something that doesn't exist.
That's so true. It's come up a few times on here where there's no destination. You've just got to you just keep doing things. Your life is just going to keep. You're just going along and doing different things, and then one day you're not here. That's it. And so, give yourself a break. Be kind to yourself. Don't think. Again, this came up the other day on another episode where we were saying, like, there's pressure on society, gives so much pressure on you to have achieved certain things at a certain time. Like, you get to your 30s, so that's when you should now own your own house. You're married.
Oh my God! Yeah.
You might have kids. You might have this, and that's society just wants you to conform. So you're part of the system, so you can make millionaires more money. That's what that's all about. There's no one really talks about that. Just look, as long as you're being decent to yourself and everyone around you, and you've got money in your pockets, and you're able to afford certain things. Go and do stuff. Go out, and you don't have to be in your 30s married with kids. You don't have to do that.
Completely, but everyone thinks it's that one blueprint that you need a white picket fence and a house and doing all of that.
And then those people are miserable.
Yeah, completely. I'm completely with you on that. But it is like it's exacerbated by social media, isn't it? Because you can see these sort of like millionaires at the age of 19 or 20, and then you got people going, oh well, why isn't that me? What can I do differently? Or this what's this fucking like drop shipping that I'm seeing everywhere, and it's like it's some Amazon thing where they're trying to hook in sort of like young men in particular, and saying, oh, alongside your job you can make £1,000 a week or something, some sort of nonsense from this like drop shipping, where you sell items through Amazon, but a warehouse holds the product, and all you do is kind of send it and ship it off. And it's I don't know, it's kind of perpetuating the behavior of. No, I think the idea of wanting to earn money is brilliant and it's admirable, but it's essentially saying that if you're not a millionaire, you're a failure. Or as you said, if you don't own a house by 30, you're a failure, which is nonsense. Yeah. Absolute nonsense. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. All these things, that selling thing just sounds like when you got a mate and he says, I've got this miracle diet stuff, and I want you to help me sell it. And you have to buy X amount of these things, and then you flog them on, and this pyramid thing. And it's always the people at the top. They're the ones with all the money. And you go, no, this is just a scam. Don't get involved with this.
Completely.
And this is the thing, people, yes, the desire to earn some money and have a good life for yourself, absolutely. But what people want, what people are seeing with social media is a quick way to do it. And that happens for 4 people a year. They become millionaires through Instagram or wherever.
Yeah.
But that's 4 people out of 7 billion in the world. You know, it's not that easy to do.
No.
Yeah, but people are looking for the easy option, aren't they? That's what people want.
Every single time. And the easiest option, which is, it's super attractive, is, you know, it means you don't have to really do a lot for potentially a lot of gain. But it is the people who just keep grafting and grafting and grafting. Then I think, I was listening to one of your podcasts this morning, and it was sort of the idea of, like, you know, going out and putting the hard work in, and that will eventually turn into reward. And it's not fun. It's not fun waking up at 6 in the morning and going off and doing that. But at the end of the day, you start seeing rewards from it. Yeah. But it goes back to the idea of a dream. You know, you sort of say in your head, oh, I want this to happen, and then I'll be happy. But it never turns out to be that anyway. And it's kind of, I thought, you know, I'm probably living the dreams that I had 5 years ago, without even realizing that I'm doing it right now. Yeah. So it's all relative, isn't it?
I remember. I was in it a few years ago. I was in a difficult place, in a difficult relationship, and I just remember being stood by the river where I used to live, and just standing there going, I just want this to be sorted out. I just want peace of mind. I just want to be in a better place. And then, sort of 5 years later, or wherever, you know, I'm living in Brighton now, and I was walking down the street the other day, and I suddenly went, oh yeah, I've got that thing I was after. I've got peace of mind. Yeah, there's other stresses and strains, but I'm like, oh shit, yeah, that feeling I had then is all gone. Yeah. I'm in a better place, like you said, and you go, I didn't even realise it. It just subconsciously somewhere I was just pushing myself on. You know, the podcast that's kept me going and some other things, but I just kind of on a subconscious level just kept pushing on, and now I'm in a much better place. And that's exactly what you just said. You don't even realise it.
Honestly, it's completely that, and that's the thing. There's nothing within these kind of like grief for sure. There's nothing to do but sort of walk through it, isn't there? Yeah. And there's no quick fixes to that. You just need to get on with it. And it's so difficult in relationships because there's the, I think I'm like self-professed sort of serial monogamist, going from like relationship to relationship. Yeah, that's the one. And I think it's that, you know, in the past I've met amazing people, but it's very much been, oh, I don't know if I can be alone, or if I want to spend time alone. I just quickly get back into a next relationship because it would feel like it would feel comfortable because relationships are great like that. Yeah. They hold you up. But I think, and when I finished my relationship, I said to myself, you know, I want to take some real time and be able to be okay by myself. And it's only while having this conversation now I'm kind of realizing, oh, I'm a lot closer to that place than I actually thought I was. And it's when you actually look in, like, you know, without sounding too corny or cliche, like looking inwards, then you can sort of be like, oh, I'm actually doing all right. I'm doing a lot better than I am. Yeah. But it comes from a hell of a lot of just inner work and, you know, really thinking about what you're putting out and what you're doing.
Yeah, man. You don't even know you're doing it. That's what I mean. No. You just, like you just said, suddenly you go, oh, actually, yeah, no, I feel I am better. I am in a better place. Especially with relationships, when like you said earlier, when you put so much onto it, you go, this is it. This is my forever. And there's that moment at the beginning where it's so, you know, you're so into each other. It's intoxicating, and you're just getting lost in each other, and you're like, oh, I can't believe I found you, and blah, blah, blah. And then later on, you're like, it's just like you can't even be in the same room with each other, and that really breaks my heart. And I think back, I'm like, fuck, we used to just gaze into each other's eyes and say all these things, and now we don't even talk to each other. And I find it's a form of grief, isn't it, that you're having to deal with because you've lost that person. Yeah, it's a lot to take on, man, and you don't realise it. But on a subconscious level, you are dealing with it, and it's almost like your brain is going, look, we'll get through this. Just you carry on with what you've got to do. You you do your day to day. I'll take care of all these thoughts and feelings. I'll figure it out. We'll get there. It's like a whole team working.
It is, isn't it?
To try and get this vehicle to keep going.
It is. And I had the partner that I broke up with. She you know how everyone always says that thing. They're always like, oh, it just takes time. You know, with time it'll get better. And she came up with this thing that I thought was genius. And she said, yeah, but the thing about time is it takes time. Yeah. And it's literally, you know, what do you do with those minutes, weeks, or hours? You just kind of, you're literally thinking about that person a lot. And people put so much, I certainly did, like, put so much into relationships and so much on relationships. And then it's exactly like you said, Rich, because I've thought about this, the idea of, like, you see that person, you're like, what the fuck happened? Like, we used to be so intimate and so close, and so much has changed. Like, everything's changed. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I'm someone who finds, certainly in relationships, like, change quite a difficult thing. I think I've spoken about it in my therapy, but I don't know if it's anything to do with, you know, growing up without a female presence. Right. That when one comes into your life, you're kind of like, oh, this is new, this is great, I really want to hold on to this. I don't know if it's something to do with that. I'm sure maybe it has, like, elements of that. Yeah. But there's just something wonderfully comforting about relationships. But then, to caveat that, it's kind of like you can find that in yourself. And I think, you know, recently I've been like, oh fuck, I can just have a brilliant time with, like, my mates, or, you know, just enjoying my own company a lot of the time. And I think the more we find that, the less pressures you put on a relationship anyway. Yeah, definitely. That inner peace is something I always, every time someone said to me, make a wish, I always said, I want inner peace. I want these feelings to stop. And I want to be happy with who I am. And I am now. You have days when you know, oh, you're a fat piece of shit. But those days, don't do that to yourself. Don't be silly.
But that's it. Just when you might be just a bit tired, or you're hungover or whatever. You know, it's not all the time. I just have these moments now and again. But then, you know, it goes away. But yeah, to have that inner peace and just go, actually, do you know what? I'm all right, actually. And people telling you as well, going, oh no, you're a good dude. And the fact that you've got people around you, that tells you all you need to know. Because I know people that they push people away because of the way they are. Yeah. And you just go, wow, I feel for you, because I'm obviously doing something right. I've got a lot of people around me that want to be around me. It's a nice feeling. And that just goes to show you that you must be a decent person. Do you know what I mean?
I completely know what you mean. Yeah. If you've got people who wanted to hang out with you, but, you know, we'll still get down on ourselves and think, oh, I'm too much this, I'm too much that, I'm a bit shit. But, you know, if you look around, you've got amazing people around you. Yeah. And also, there was what was it? I wrote something the other day which was like, well, it was just playing with the word coffin, but I was like, I prefer to have a friend like crying and coughing on my shoulder than carrying his coffin on my shoulder. And it's kind of like just the idea of just speaking to people, man. It's just so important. It's not said enough, you know. No,
I know, it's exactly true. That's why I was so struck by your work, because I was like, man, this is exactly the message. It was so well put. Like, just saying it, because I say it all the time, like, just talk to people, just open up, talk to each other. Yeah. And then sometimes people hear that so often that they don't even hear it anymore. Yeah, completely. So listening to your stuff, I'm like, people need to listen to this, and they'll get it, because there was so much detail in that one poem. It really nailed it, man. And then the video as well, I stopped in the street and I was like, this is bang on. This is exactly what needs to be said. That I can't say it, you know?
Yeah. Well, that one I'm going to put out as a there's a football player who used to play for Fulham, and he now plays in Nice, called Joe Bryan, and he helped Fulham get up to the Premiership again, and he's a massive advocate for men's mental health, and I certainly someone you should potentially reach out to, because he's
I'd love to,
he's got a great story, and also a great reasoning behind being so involved in this. But he reached out to me, and he was I want to try and do something with him towards, somehow bringing the two worlds together, because I think definitely in sport there's so much of this that goes unsaid, because you constantly need to be on best behavior and showing your best face, but also leading by example. And it's almost I don't know, maybe in the sporting world, or in a lot of worlds, to speak about mental health can be quite an uncool thing, or sort of seen like, what, that's taboo, you don't talk about that, that's weird. And I think he's taken an amazing step to speak about it. But with that poem that you mentioned, that's becoming like a full track, and the plan is the partnership with Mind,
Excellent.
the mental health charity, and then also with the voice or the backing of Joe. So that's the kind of aim for that poem, because I just
Fantastic.
think if you bring things into to modern culture, then all of a sudden it can be more accessible to people, rather than people sitting with it on their room. If they can listen to it on a podcast, or listen to it on a song on Spotify or a video on YouTube, they can go, oh, this is way more universal than I thought.
Yeah.
And just not sit alone with it as much.
Yeah, and it's those worlds as well, the sporting worlds, not just the people involved, but the people that watch, the fans especially. You still see groups of lads. I know when I lived in Stratford, and I'd see all the West Ham fans coming through the station, and it was just like, I don't want to be around this.
Yeah.
And you're like, at no point. It's probably going to be some people in amongst this crowd that are really struggling with their mental health, and their only outlet is to go with the lads and get lashed up, and then just have a bit of a punch up in a car park with other fans. But they don't want to do that, but they're stuck in this world because they don't look like they're weak. And I think that every time, but then I'm like, well, I'm not going to mention it now while I'm stood amongst all these people. I'll get my head kicked in.
Yeah, no, completely. But it's such a good point you make when you say you don't want to look weak, because that's exactly what it is, isn't it? You're with your mates, and you want to be able to like appear, and you end up doing things you don't want to do.
Exactly.
And, peer pressure is a massive thing.
Yeah.
And people pleasing as well, and you just sort of go along with the ride, and before you know it, you're in too deep, and it's something you don't want to really be doing.
Yeah. There was I don't really follow football, but there's a great film called Away Days, and it was set in the early 80s. So it's talking about the fashion from then as well, like the casuals and things like that. But they focus on two of the lads in this one particular group. And every Saturday they're going off and they're having these fights. And one of the top boys in the group, he becomes friendly with this newer lad that's joined. The lad wants to join this crew, and he's just he starts dressing like them, and he wants to get in the group and things like that. And he gets friendly with one of the top boys, and then one day he goes to the top boy's house, and he's got all these trainers, but he's got all this artwork, and he's talking about music, and he's talking about going to Berlin, and they were saying, and there's quite a bromance kind of starts to happen. And then even the top boy's going like, you don't want to be part of this, man. It's a shit life. I want to go to Berlin. Come to Berlin with me. Let's just fuck off. And it becomes quite they use the phrase homoerotic, but there's a love that's building between these two lads. And like the younger lad really just wants to get involved with the fighting and he wants the kudos. Whereas this older lad's like, fuck this, man. Let's just fuck off. Let's go. And it was it's a beautiful film because it shows you behind the scenes, like of these football hooligan types. It's a brilliant film.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going to remember that and watch that.
It's called Away Days, and it's got Stephen Graham's in it and people like that, and it's
he's amazing.
Great film.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's a great film. I love it. But my point is, that's what's happening. So I see these football fans striding through Stratford, and they're chanting and they're shouting and they're very intimidating. They're, not just West Ham fans. When you see lots of these fans together, like in Brighton when they all pile on the train. Now I live down there, and you don't want to be near it, but I know that for a fact there's going to be lads in there going, I don't want to be doing this. I want to be doing something else, but now I'm stuck, but I don't know what to do. And it would probably take, just if two of them just spoke to each other, they'd probably say the same thing. They go, yeah, I don't want to do this either. But you know what I mean? So I think footballers now and sport people that are admired in the sporting world, it's so great that they're coming out now and talking about their mental health.
Absolutely.
Like Peter Crouch and Ricky Hatton. It's exactly what needs to happen.
Because it needs to be those kind of people with a voice, and especially Ricky Hatton. You look at the world that he was involved in, and very much the brutality of men in, you know, in a ring literally, but it's kind of like for if people can look at him as an idol and say, you know, if someone like that can speak about their mental health, then surely I can do that.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
again, like I'm, you know, I'm coming from a place of privilege. It's like, you know, I've always been afforded the almost the luxury of being able to speak about my emotions, and my friendship groups have always been great at, you know, if we can see someone's down, we do say, you know, what's up? Do you want to talk about it? So I think it somehow needs to be afforded to all walks of life and to all mindsets and to all parts of the world. It can't just be for you know, people who were brought up around the table being, you know, asked the question of, no, how really was your day? What's really going on? So it's how to bring that into a more public eye, you know, mindset. And I think with people like Ricky Hatton and Peter Crouch, that will really move the conversation along for sure.
Absolutely, and it's and conversation like this with you.
Yeah.
You know, you're very open about things, like you talked about. You know that you're at the minute you're going through you've just been through a really horrible breakup, and you're chatting away about it. You know, like you and I have only just met, and it's a wonderful thing that you're able to talk about it with someone that you don't know, and like you talk about like you're growing up without a mum.
Yeah.
And there'll be other people listening to this that have had a similar thing, and I don't know what that feels like. I was lucky to have both parents around. They didn't divorce or split up or anything. So, how was that for you growing up? That must have been difficult, or did it just? I suppose if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah,
Really?
I think I've had a very close friend of mine recently who lost her dad, and I think my main thing, we were speaking about it a bit, speaking quite frankly, and she was, you know, not asking for advice, but just sort of saying, you know, what's it like? What was it like for you losing a parent? And I think for me, I always said it must be so, in my head, much more difficult for you at this age, because you kind of intellectually know your parent, you know what makes them laugh or what makes them cry, or, you know, how to get their nerves or whatever it is. Whereas I think for me, I lost my mum when I was like around 9 years old. Right. So it was mainly just sort of needs wants basis. But I had moments throughout my life where I sort of would see. I remember really clearly I was in a playground in Battersea, and a boy fell over and like scraped his knee, and his mum came rushing over and like picked him up and sort of gave him a cuddle. And I think I was about 11 or 12 or something, and I was just like, oh fuck, like I'd love that.
Yeah.
I really like that. And I think in the sense of knowing something's missing but not quite being able to put your finger on it, I felt that throughout my whole life. I still do.
Yeah. So
but
one day, she just was. One day she was there, one day she wasn't. And then
yeah,
that was
one
it.
day she wasn't. Yeah, I mean, my dad's got Tourette syndrome, so like he can't keep secrets or whatever to save his life. But I think, I was like, my mum died of brain cancer, but when I was about 8 years old, we were in a burger restaurant, and I went to the toilet, and my dad happened to go to the toilet too, and he just sort of blurts out, "Oh, mum's gonna die," and I was like, "Oh, Dad, god damn." So I kind of found out in a very abrupt way.
Yeah.
I think it helped because there's no right way to tell someone awful news.
No.
It just comes out, and however it is perfect. That's how it's supposed to be. But yeah, all these little funny musings that you hold on to. Like my mum died in a hospice in Clapham, and the workers there got all the kids together, and they gave them each a balloon, and they were like, write a note to your parent and attach it to the balloon. And it was quite a breezy day in autumn, and we all released these balloons, and we watched them go up and up and up, and they probably about 60% of them burst on this massive oak tree. So like all these kids had just lost their parents. They're like, well, my fucking dreams are going up in smoke too. Ridiculous.
Thanks for that. Cheers.
Yeah, but it's funny how we choose to remember people. You know, like those are the moments that I hold on to more about my mum than individual moments of her, because to be honest, I can't really remember a lot of moments. I grew up in Russia and then Turkey.
Right, okay.
I'm still convinced my dad's a spy, but his Tourette syndrome would probably let him down.
Well, he'd be the best spy because you wouldn't expect it.
Do you know what I mean? It's still going on my head, Rich. Yeah. I'm still like, maybe he is. But, you know, so maybe that adds to it. I moved around a bit as a kid, so I don't have like crystallized moments. But I sort of remember my mum through how I speak about her. So like conversations like this, I remember the balloon popping. I remember, you know, my dad getting emotional at his 50th, speaking about his wife, or like my, what is it? My dad always sings that Elton John song that goes, what is it? Yeah, it's like, I miss the earth so much, I miss my wife. And just the
Yeah.
way he leans into that sentence whenever he sings it, you know, I can capture what my mum was like throughout just that sentence.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's the thing about losing someone. They're never really, as cliche as it is, they're never really gone, because they're kind of remembered and re-remembered through the way people speak about them, or through the little memories they can add to the picture you're painting in your head. So
Yeah.
you know, I'm eternally sort of revisiting that.
I remember that, listening to that song. There's a song by The. It's called "Love Is Stronger Than Death," and that was the first time I'd heard that phrase, and I'm like, oh fuck yeah, of course it is. Yes, they're no longer here, but you still love them, and the love is what keeps them in you. Like they're still, that keeps you around, keeps them around, and it really blew my head off to hear that phrase for the first time. Love is stronger than death. I was like, fuck, man, yeah.
That's what it is, isn't
it's
it?
Amazing,
That is honestly, it's genius, that, because it's just so true, but it's overlooked. You kind of think, oh, they're gone now, and that's the end of it.
yeah.
But I mean, it's the same with it's what we're talking about, that road of grief. You just have to walk through it, and then you can then revisit it with love rather than what you've lost.
I mean, that's come up before, the talk about grief. A few people have been on and discussed it. We had a guy on, Mark Lemon, who does a lot of work for people that are, he helps a lot of people with their grief, because he lost his dad at a young age in a horrible way, and he's doing great work. And talking to comic Ishan Akbar, talking about losing his mum, and it's taught me how it works, how you deal with grief. Grief never goes away. You just find a way of carrying it with you. And that was when I got told that again. I was like, fuck yeah, you know, this thing that they say, you know, yeah. I mean, you the gaps between the sadness are longer, but every now and again it still hits you. There's that moment you just get floored by it, and you know, but you've learned how to carry it around with you now. And I found that was such an important message.
Which is true, isn't it? It's brilliant, that, and it just goes to show you, for, you know, anyone going through anything, that, well, it does get better, and it gets better because you learn how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that comes from talking to yourself and talking to other people, and, you know, however else you get kind of closure and acceptance and peace. But it's such a valuable skill, isn't it? Just to learn that you can carry on. I can get through this. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think with you're channeling a lot of your emotions into your work, and I find that as well with what I do. I can talk about the things that are troubling me on stage. I can make a joke out of it, and it makes it feel better. You know, if I can find some funny in the shit that I've gone through, you know, it's cathartic. And like listening to your work,
that is the perfect word. Yeah.
Just to get it out
completely.
You know? Yeah.
I remember before it became a massive book and then TV show. Adam Kay, who did This Is Gonna Hurt. I saw him at the. I've been going to the Edinburgh Fringe since I was about 14 years old, and it's like my second home. I love it. But I saw Adam Kay at the Theatre Festival in Edinburgh. Brilliant. And he was in a room of about 45 people. But he did this whole performance, which was then turned into the book and then the TV show. But he, the way he talks about junior doctors, and it's always a joke. And then this is the genius of what you do, Rich. Like, you know, comics, and you lull people, in my opinion, to this beautiful sense of security with humor and comedy and charm and wit, and then it gets undercut at the end. And I've seen Daniel Sloss do it, I've seen Adam Kay do it, but they undercut it with a really serious message, and it just breaks you. And like Adam Kay, when he spoke about how he quit being a doctor after someone dying on his table, and the whole room is just completely floored, because the story of taking you one place and then realizing that life is about crashing and burning, and then it's how you bounce back from the ashes that sort of can define who you are in that moment. But yeah, it's why I love comedians, man. I think they're genius, brilliant
Oh,
people.
mate. Well, I love poetry. I didn't really have a big understanding of poetry until I started doing a show called Stand Up and Slam, where it was comedians versus poets.
Mm.
And we had different topics, and we had to win the audience over, and the audience voted on who won, and then so sometimes the poets would win, sometimes the comedians would win, but it was the first time I'd met poets and realised that there's a vast scene, there's a massive world out there. It wasn't just the things that I'd grown up with. There's this whole spoken word universe that I had no idea existed.
Yeah. It's
And
crazy
I love
because it is. Yeah, it's a mad world because you've got this because I don't know how many sort of commercial poets have made a real living since about the 1533 or something. But it's sort of like this world of like, George the poet and K Tempest and Rupi Kaur and all these poets who are sort of able to basically make a living from poetry, which seems crazy. But then also you've got, slam poetry and then spoken word poetry, and then, you've got UK artists like, Loyal Kana or Nux or, Frankie Stew and Harvey Garner, whoever it is, who are sort of like these rappers who rap is just rhythm and poetry. So it's, it's one and the same really. And it's kind of, I think it's making a real name for itself at the moment. And it's a really exciting time for poetry. The only thing I hate is that you get some of these gigs or you get invited to a performance. I don't like the clicking. It drives my head in. I'm like, no, you're honestly, because they're making a shit. I know some people love it, but I'm just sort of like, it makes it such a. Have you watched 22 Jump Street?
No.
It's a film with
no, yeah, I have
Channing Tatum, but there's a scene where he does this like. There's apparently two things. There's like a spoken word voice, where people are like, "I'm here and writing for the people who are," or whatever, like this kind of lilt breakup, and then also the clicking. It's just those two things. I just really, I don't know. I'm like, just talk. If it happens to rhyme in time, then that's what it is. But just speak it. That's all we need.
I remember seeing So I Married an Axe Murderer. And there's a bit of that, and he goes, whoa, man. And it's all, yeah.
It's all like the finger clacking. So good.
But I love your stuff. Yeah. And I believe you're going to read some for us.
I am, mate. Yeah, I got I've got one that I wrote for my sister, but it's applicable to whoever really. But it's just sort of about those feelings of when sometimes the sad sort of feels better than feeling good, and like that's completely fine. That's okay. Yeah. So I thought I'd do that one for you, if that's all right.
Lovely. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. And if you want to, you can, I don't know, you can add some little music behind it or whatever. It's clip. If you want to, mate. I'll be leaving if you do. I'm joking. So it goes like this. So, well, she'd hide inside her room next to the records that she collects, looking for better ways to spend the hours and the days that don't connect. She was down on herself and just wishing she had someone to say. Sometimes the sad feels better than feeling good, and that's okay. Sometimes we do want blue skies to fade away into clouds of perfect grey. She thought a life of just happiness sounds pretty sad anyway. So she tied herself over by tying blankets around her waist and racing around the room with the powers she so craved. She was Superwoman, a super suit that suited her best, red trails that flew behind her with an S on her chest. See, with that blanket on her body, she could be anyone. She could be anywhere. She could beat down on the sounds of lonely and scared and break away from the bubble that troubled her cares. It was a path to a new you, but who knew that she too would run around with such blues, passing people in pain, but she'd just smile on through. So she'd keep herself inside and hide in her room with a view. Let imagination run wild with a floor of lava, this child of laughter running after the same life that passed her, passing time by picking pillows and shadow boxing with herself, trying to chase it off her body to see how Peter Pan felt. And Peter Pan and the gang would sit and watch from the shelf. The lost boys and other toys knew that something was out, but since Toy Story gave away the game, they weren't allowed to scream and shout. They weren't allowed to move around her and keep her calm while the sound of thunder and rain that came every winter found her and pushed her down to the deep depths underwater. If only it was normal to have down days, she thought. And that thought made her sad, like airports at Christmas. Saying goodbye to the ones who will miss us. Saying goodbye to the ones who will fly into that dark night sky, and you stand there and witness. You stand there and grimace. You wave and you finish with tears streaming down your face. You fall and you feel it. You fall to the floor in a ball and you scream it. And she picked up her favorite book and she threw it hard down to the ground. And it landed with loud sound, and from out of it slid a note that had never been found. A note signed from Mother. And she picked it up with these trembling fingertips and she started to read aloud. Just reading aloud the wise words of motherly wisdom. Her eyes burnt from the first verb so lovingly written. She felt hurt at first, but then she read and she listened. And it said, with love and with light, in the chapters of life, pain will always hold a page. And sometimes the process of progress is an uncomfortable phase, but once you read through the writing, you'll see that lighter days are just a chapter away. But while you're in the middle of it all, don't pretend to be okay, because sometimes the sad feels better than feeling good. So let it stay. Let it stay where you spend a smile with a friend. The ones who hold you in their home without charging you rent. The ones who know that you're alone from the way you pick up the phone. That lower tone that you own, they hear it because they're heavenly sent. You know, how often we neglect the down days and just spin them with a smile. If only we spoke for a while, we'd see that beings are wild and that feelings like seasons will go and change with the times. So love all of you, including the sad parts of your mind. And that is the poem.
Mate. Oh my God. That was incredible. Thank you so much for that.
Of course, man. My
Oh,
pleasure.
man. And thank you so much for coming on to talk to me today. It's been
Thank you for having me on the show, honestly.
Oh, man. It's been an absolute joy. My pleasure. Where can we find you on the socials?
So you can find me, it's just my name, so you can find me at Dan Whitlam. So that's DanWhitlam. And that's on, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, whatever you want. So, yeah.
Excellent.
And lots to be sort of announced and released on there. So we'll go.
Yeah,
from there.
got some stuff coming up.
Yeah, got some bits coming up. So we good.
Good, man. I'm glad to hear it. Dan, thank you so much. Thank you for keeping the conversation going.
Of course, mate.
It's honestly, it's fucking great what you're doing.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you for saying that, Rich, honestly.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you very much. Great to meet you. It's been a great show. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time on Insane in the Membrane.